The navigation chamber's walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns as Queen Zarathek raised her crystalline hand. The human prisoner stood motionless in his containment field, sweat beading on his forehead despite the chamber's cool temperature. "Your species claims superiority in exploration," she hissed, her voice echoing through the organic corridors of her hive ship. "Yet you stumble through space like blind larvae seeking light." Captain Marcus Chen remained silent, studying the intricate maze that had materialized from the ship's living walls. 50 meters of twisted passages stretched before him, each turn identical to the last, each dead end perfectly concealed. The Queen's elite guard flanked the chamber's entrance, their compound eyes reflecting fragments of his image. "Navigate this simple puzzle," Zarathek commanded, her mandibles clicking with amusement. "Prove your worth, or join your crew in the feeding chambers." The containment field dissolved with a wet sound. Marcus stepped forward, ignoring the tremor in his legs. 3 days of captivity had weakened his body but sharpened his mind. He'd been listening, watching, learning the rhythms of this alien vessel. "Too easy," he said quietly. The Queen's head tilted, antennae twitching. "Arrogance from a creature who required rescue from an asteroid field. Your navigation computer failed, did it not? Your crew panicked like frightened insects." Marcus entered the maze without hesitation. The walls towered above him, pulsing with the same rhythm as the ship's heartbeat. He placed his palm against the nearest surface, feeling the warm pulse beneath his fingers. The organic material responded to his touch, cells shifting slightly. "Your people map by sight alone," Zarathek's voice followed him through the passages. "Crude. Primitive. We navigate by instinct, by connection to the living vessel itself." The first dead end appeared after 20 steps. Marcus backtracked without frustration, his hand never leaving the wall. The pulse grew stronger near certain passages, weaker near others. He'd noticed this pattern in the ship's corridors during his capture. The second wrong turn led to a chamber filled with thorned vines. He retreated, mapping the layout in his mind. Not through visual memory, but through the subtle variations in the wall's heartbeat. The ship was guiding him, whether it knew it or not. "Your silence speaks of fear," the Queen taunted. Her footsteps echoed above him as she followed his progress from elevated observation platforms. The great human explorer reduced to fumbling through passages a hatchling could navigate. Marcus found the correct path on his 4th attempt. The maze's center contained a simple platform surrounded by glowing symbols. He stepped onto it, feeling the ship's pulse synchronize with his own heartbeat. "Acceptable," Zarathek admitted, her voice carrying notes of disappointment. "Though you required multiple attempts. Hardly the navigation mastery your species boasts." "I'm just getting started," Marcus said. The Queen descended from her observation post, her movements fluid despite her imposing size.
"Meaning?"
Marcus closed his eyes. "Run it again. This time I won't look." The chamber fell silent except for the ship's rhythmic pulse. Even the guards shifted uneasily, their breathing the only sound competing with the vessel's heartbeat. "Impossible," Zarathek whispered. "Visual navigation is your only strength. Remove that and you're helpless." "Maybe." Marcus kept his eyes closed as the maze reconfigured around them. New passages formed, old ones sealed themselves. The entire structure shifted into a completely different pattern. Or maybe you don't understand how humans really navigate. The Queen's antennae flattened against her skull. "You would attempt this blindfolded? You've seen the maze once in its previous configuration." "This is suicide disguised as bravado?" Marcus smiled without opening his eyes. "Your ship has been teaching me its language for 3 days. Every pulse, every vibration, every shift in temperature, you think in patterns because you're part of the pattern. Humans think differently. Elaborate, we adapt. We learn, we find connections others miss." He stepped toward the maze's new entrance. "Your maze changes, but the ship's heartbeat doesn't. Neither does its circulation system, its neural network, or the way sound travels through its passages." Zarathek's mandibles spread wide, a display of incredulous rage. "You would stake your life on this theory? My life was forfeit the moment you captured my crew." Marcus opened his eyes briefly, meeting her compound gaze. "But if I succeed, you release them unharmed? And if you fail, then you have an interesting story to tell about the foolish human who died believing in impossible things." The Queen's silence stretched for long moments. Finally, she gestured to one of her guards. "Blindfold him with nerve silk. If he removes it, he dies instantly." The guard approached with a strip of organic material that seemed to writhe with its own life. As it wrapped around Marcus's eyes, his world went completely dark. The nerve silk would detect any attempt to see through it, triggering immediate paralysis. "Begin when ready, human. Your crew's fate depends on your next steps." Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the ship's pulse through his feet. The maze waited ahead, completely reconfigured, utterly alien in its new pattern. But beneath the changes, the ship's deeper rhythms remained constant. He stepped forward into absolute darkness, the nerve silk pressed against his eyelids as Marcus moved deeper into the maze. Each step sent vibrations through the ship's living floor, creating a map in his mind through sound and sensation alone. The Queen's breathing above him had quickened, her confidence wavering as he navigated the first turn without hesitation. "Impossible," she muttered. "He must be cheating somehow." Marcus smiled, his hand trailing along the wall. The ship's circulatory system pulsed beneath his palm, stronger in passages that led toward the center, weaker in dead ends. It was like following blood vessels toward a heart. "Your ship doesn't lie," he said aloud. "Every living thing has patterns. Rhythms. You've just forgotten how to listen to them because you've never been separated from them." The second turn came naturally. His feet detected the slight upward slope that indicated the correct path. Wrong passages remained level or descended slightly. The ship's gravity generator created these subtle differences, probably for its own structural reasons that had nothing to do with the maze. Zarathek's footsteps quickened above him. "You're guessing. Random chance explains your success so far." "Then why are you worried?" The third passage opened into a wider space. Marcus could tell by the way his breathing sounded, by the change in air pressure against his skin. The ship's ventilation system hummed differently here, suggesting multiple pathways converged. He chose the passage where the air moved fastest. Air would flow toward the maze's center, where the platform created a slight updraft, basic physics but applied to an alien architecture. "The human's methodology is unprecedented," one of the guards whispered to another. "He reads the ship like scripture." "Silence!" Zarathek snapped. "Concentration is meaningless if applied incorrectly. He will fail at the next junction." The complexity increases exponentially. Marcus encountered the next decision point within minutes. 5 passages branched away from his location, each seemingly identical. He knelt, pressing his ear to the floor. The ship's heartbeat created micro-vibrations that traveled differently through various materials. The center passage carried the strongest pulse. He followed it. "Luck," the Queen declared, but her voice had lost its certainty. "Pure coincidence. If you say so." Marcus's confidence grew with each correct turn. The ship wasn't just a vessel to him now. It was a puzzle with consistent rules, a living system with predictable patterns. Every starship had them, human or alien. The trick was learning to read them. The maze's walls began changing texture as he progressed. Smoother near the center, rougher toward dead ends. Another pattern the ship's designers had built in, probably without realizing it. Form following function in ways that transcended species boundaries. "He's adapting faster than our psychological profiles predicted," a guard reported quietly. "His spatial reasoning appears enhanced by sensory deprivation." "Impossible," Zarathek repeated, but the word had become a mantra of denial rather than certainty. Marcus reached another junction. This time, he detected something new. A subtle warmth emanating from the passage to his right. The ship's core generated heat, and that heat would be strongest along the path to the maze's center. "You're starting to understand," he said to the Queen as he turned right. "Humans don't just navigate through space. We navigate through problems, through challenges, through systems that don't want to be understood." The passage narrowed, then opened again. The air tasted different here, carrying traces of ozone that suggested the maze's center contained some kind of energy source, probably the platform itself generating the field that would register his success. "Your arrogance will be your downfall," Zarathek said, but she sounded desperate now. "The final approach contains traps, pitfalls. You cannot sense everything." Marcus paused, considering her words. Traps would require mechanisms. Mechanisms created vibrations, subtle changes in the ship's natural rhythm. He stamped his foot lightly, listening to the echo. The sound returned clean from ahead, muffled from behind. "No traps," he said. "You're trying to shake my confidence." "How could you possibly—" "Because traps would disrupt the ship's natural patterns. And this ship was grown, not built. It wouldn't tolerate artificial disruptions to its structure." Marcus walked forward with renewed certainty. The final turn revealed itself through a change in air pressure, a subtle shift in the ship's pulse that indicated the maze's heart lay just ahead. The platform's energy field buzzed against his skin as he stepped onto it. The nerve silk dissolved automatically, recognizing his success. Light flooded his vision as his eyes adjusted to the chamber's bioluminescent glow. Queen Zarathek stood frozen on her observation platform, her compound eyes reflecting disbelief and something else, respect. Impossible, she whispered one final time. No, Marcus said, looking directly at her. Just human. The Queen descended slowly, her movements deliberate rather than fluid now. Every step seemed to cost her something, as if his success had fundamentally altered her understanding of the universe. Her elite guard watched silently, their compound eyes tracking between their leader and the human who had just accomplished the impossible. You have succeeded where 3 other species have failed, she admitted, her voice barely audible above the ship's heartbeat. The Korthani navigators lasted 18 hours before surrendering. The Vextari scouts managed 32 attempts before requesting termination. Marcus remained on the platform, its energy field still humming around him. What about the 3rd species? The 3rd species no longer exists. Zarathek's antennae drooped. They chose death over admitting defeat. I granted their request. The chamber's silence stretched between them, filled only by the ship's rhythmic pulse. Marcus understood now that this had never been about navigation skills. It had been about something deeper, something that challenged the Queen's fundamental beliefs about superiority and survival. Your crew, she said finally, will be released as agreed, but you will remain. That wasn't our deal. The deal has evolved. Her mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation he'd learned to recognize. You have demonstrated abilities that transcend your species' known parameters. Such knowledge cannot be allowed to spread unchecked through the galaxy. Marcus stepped off the platform, the energy field's hum fading.
You're afraid.
I am cautious. There is a difference. No, you're afraid. Because if one human can navigate your ship blindfolded, what else might humans be capable of? What other impossible things might we accomplish when we put our minds to it? The Queen's head tilted, studying him with the focused intensity of a predator evaluating unexpected prey. Your point? Humans don't just adapt to systems. We improve them. We find flaws. We discover possibilities that the original designers never imagined. Marcus gestured toward the maze, now reconfiguring itself back to its default state. Your test wasn't designed to be solved blindfolded, but I solved it anyway, using principles your people never considered. Dangerous principles, useful ones. Your ship could navigate more efficiently if you listened to its natural rhythms instead of fighting them. Your mazes could be more challenging if you understood how different species process spatial information. Your entire civilization could benefit from studying how humans approach problems. Zarathek's compound eyes reflected his image in hundreds of fragments, each one showing a different angle of his defiance. You propose cooperation rather than captivity. I propose mutual benefit rather than mutual destruction. You've already proven you can capture humans. Now let me prove we're worth more alive and free than dead or imprisoned. The Queen's Guard shifted restlessly. Their leader's indecision was unusual, possibly unprecedented. Marcus could see the uncertainty in their posture, the way their attention flickered between their queen and the human who had just challenged everything they thought they knew. Explain this mutual benefit, Zarathek commanded. Your people navigate by instinct and connection to living vessels. Humans navigate by analysis and adaptation to any system. Combine both approaches, and you get navigation capabilities that surpass either species alone. Continue? Your ships are grown, not built. That gives them capabilities human technology can't match, but human engineering principles could enhance those capabilities in ways you've never explored. We think differently about problems. We see connections you miss, just like you see instincts we lack. The Queen descended from her platform, approaching until she stood directly in front of him. Her height forced Marcus to crane his neck upward, but he maintained eye contact with her primary visual sensors. You speak of partnership between species that have never coexisted successfully? Because they've never tried. They've only fought or avoided each other.
Real cooperation requires understanding, not dominance.
And if your crew proves as resourceful as their captain? If they discover weaknesses in my ship's design? Marcus smiled. Then you'll learn from those weaknesses and build better ships. That's how progress works. You identify flaws, you fix them, you become stronger. Fighting humans won't make you stronger. Learning from us will. Zaratek's antennae twitched rapidly, processing information at speeds beyond human comprehension. Her decision, when it came, surprised everyone in the chamber. Your crew will be released. You will remain, but not as a prisoner. As a consultant. You will teach my navigators your impossible methods, and they will teach you the deeper mysteries of living ship communion. And after that? After that, we will see if this cooperation you speak of can survive contact with reality. The Queen gestured to her guards. Escort Captain Chen to comfortable quarters. Inform the crew of their impending release. Begin preparations for extended collaboration. Marcus stepped forward before the guards could reach him. One more condition. Zarathek's mandibles spread in what might have been amusement or threat. You dare negotiate further? Not negotiate. Request. When this collaboration proves successful, when your people have learned what humans can teach and vice versa, I want safe passage to carry this knowledge back to human space, to warn them of our capabilities, to convince them that cooperation is possible. That the galaxy is big enough for both our species to thrive without destroying each other. The Queen considered this for long moments, her compound eyes reflecting the chamber's shifting bioluminescence. Finally she nodded once. Agreed. But know this, human. If you betray this trust, if you use this knowledge against my people, the consequences will extend far beyond your own life. Understood. And if you betray the trust I'm placing in you, you'll discover just how resourceful humans can be when they're properly motivated. Marcus extended his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Queen Zarathek reached out with one crystalline appendage, completing the first peaceful contact between their species. The impossible had become possible. The collaboration chamber buzzed with activity as Marcus demonstrated human navigation principles to a dozen Zarathek navigators. 3 weeks had passed since his blindfolded success, and the Queen's ship had become a floating laboratory where two species learned to think like one. The key is redundancy, Marcus explained, sketching diagrams on a bioluminescent display panel that responded to both human touch and Zarathek neural commands. Humans don't rely on single navigation methods because we know systems fail. Navigator Prime Kethvara clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. But redundancy creates confusion. Multiple sources of information can contradict each other. Exactly. That's why we develop judgment. We learn to weigh sources, to identify which information is most reliable under different circumstances. Marcus highlighted sections of his diagram. Your living ships provide incredibly accurate navigation, but what happens if the ship is injured? If its neural networks are disrupted? We die, Kethvar admitted. Our connection to the vessel is absolute. Without it, we are lost. But you don't have to be. Watch. Marcus activated a simulation he'd been developing with the ship's computational matrix. Same scenario, but with human backup protocols integrated into your system. The display showed a Zarathek vessel navigating through an asteroid field. Suddenly, sections of the ship's neural network went dark, simulating battle damage. Instead of becoming helpless, the ship's navigation continued using sensor arrays, mathematical calculations, and pattern recognition algorithms. Impossible, whispered another navigator. The ship is dying, yet it still navigates. Not dying. Adapting. Using different tools when its primary tools are compromised. Marcus switched to a new display. Now watch what happens when we combine both approaches from the beginning. This simulation showed perfect integration. The ship's living neural networks provided intuitive course corrections while human analytical systems verified each decision and prepared alternatives. Navigation accuracy improved by 37%, and response time to unexpected obstacles decreased by half. Queen Zarathek entered the chamber during the demonstration, her presence immediately commanding attention from her navigators. She studied the displays with intense focus, her compound eyes processing information at inhuman speeds. Impressive theoretical work, she acknowledged. But theory and practice are different domains. Your crew has been preparing for departure. Are you prepared to test these integrated systems under real conditions? Marcus nodded. The navigation protocols are ready. My people have been learning your communion techniques while yours have been studying our analytical methods. But there's still one element missing. Which is trust. Marcus gestured toward the mixed group of humans in Zarathek working together around the chamber. Your navigators still hesitate before trusting human calculations. My crew still doubts their ability to commune with living ships. Real integration requires absolute faith in your partner's capabilities. Kethvara stepped forward. Captain Chen speaks truth, Kamaro. I understand his methods intellectually, but when crisis comes, my instinct is to reject artificial analysis in favor of ship communion. And my engineer Sarah still jumps every time the ship's neural networks touch her mind, Marcus admitted. She trusts the mathematics but fears the living connection. Queen Zarathek studied both species with calculating intensity. Then we will create a crisis that demands complete cooperation. A scenario where neither approach alone can succeed. What kind of crisis? Marcus asked, though her tone already suggested he wouldn't like the answer. The Helix Nebula, a stellar phenomenon that has claimed 17 ships from 7 different species over the past decade. Navigation by instinct fails because the nebula's energy fields disrupt ship communion. Navigation by calculation fails because the phenomenon shifts too rapidly for analytical prediction. Marcus felt his crew's tension from across the chamber. They'd heard stories about the Helix Nebula. Ships entered and simply vanished, leaving no trace except scattered debris patterns that defied explanation. You're proposing we deliberately enter the most dangerous navigation hazard in known space? I am proposing we prove that cooperation can overcome challenges neither species could face alone. The Queen moved to the chamber's central display, calling up star charts that showed the nebula's location. The phenomenon occurs every 47 standard days. The next occurrence is in 18 hours. And if we fail? If the integrated systems don't work? Then we die together, having attempted something unprecedented, or we succeed together and prove that the impossible remains merely difficult. Navigator Prime Kethvera stepped beside Marcus, her alien features set in determined lines. I will trust human analysis completely if Captain Chen will trust Zarathek communion completely. Marcus looked at his crew. Chief Engineer Sarah nodded grimly. Communications Officer Torres gave a thumbs up. Even young pilot Chen managed a nervous smile. Deal, Marcus said. Full integration, total trust. No backup plans. No backup plans, Queen Zarathek agreed. Only success or shared failure. The ship began altering course immediately, its living hull responding to the Queen's mental commands while human navigation computers calculated the most efficient approach vector. For the first time since the collaboration began, both systems worked in perfect harmony. Marcus watched the stellar charts update as they approached their destination. The Helix Nebula appeared deceptively beautiful from a distance, its spiraling energy fields creating patterns of light that shifted like aurora across space. But those same patterns had destroyed some of the galaxy's most experienced navigators. 18 hours to prove the impossible is just difficult, he murmured. 17 hours and 53 minutes, Sarah corrected from her engineering station. I've been watching the chronometer. Nervous? Terrified. But also excited. If this works, we'll have created something completely new. A navigation system that combines living intuition with analytical precision. Queen Zarathek approached Marcus as the crew made final preparations. Second thoughts, human? Always. That's what keeps us alive. Marcus studied the approaching nebula on the main display, but not enough to change course. Your people are risking as much as mine. More, perhaps. If this fails, I will be remembered as the queen who destroyed her own ship chasing impossible dreams. And if it succeeds? Her mandibles spread, and what he'd learned was the Zarathek equivalent of a smile. Then I will be remembered as the queen who made the impossible possible. The ship's neural networks hummed with anticipation as they entered the nebula's outer edge. Energy fields washed over the hull, creating patterns of interference that would have crippled traditional navigation systems. But this system was no longer traditional, and human analytical protocols processed the interference patterns while Zarathek communion systems felt the nebula's deeper rhythms. Together they began to perceive something that neither species had ever seen before. The Helix Nebula wasn't chaotic, it was alive. Energy surged through the ship's hull as they penetrated deeper into the Helix Nebula. The main display showed cascading waves of electromagnetic interference that would normally blind all sensors, but the integrated navigation system processed the chaos differently. Where humans saw mathematical patterns in the energy fluctuations, the Zarathek perceived living rhythms in the nebula's electromagnetic heartbeat. Navigation holding steady, reported Pilot Chen, her voice tight with concentration. The integrated protocols are compensating for interference faster than I can track. Navigator Prime Kithvara stood beside her, one crystalline hand resting on the ship's neural interface while the other operated human-designed controls. Her compound eyes reflected the swirling energy patterns outside as data flowed between organic intuition and analytical calculation. The nebula responds to our presence, she announced. It is not merely a stellar phenomenon. It possesses awareness. Define awareness, Marcus said, studying the sensor readings that showed impossible complexity in the energy fields surrounding them. It learns from ships that enter. Each vessel that has been destroyed contributed information to its understanding of navigation techniques. It has become immune to conventional approaches. Queen Zarathek moved to the central command position, her mental link with the ship creating a feedback loop that included both human and Zarathek crew members. Then we must approach it unconventionally. Show it something it has never encountered. The ship shuddered as a massive energy wave swept through their position. Traditional shields would have failed immediately, but the living hull adapted in real time while human engineering principles distributed the energy load through redundant pathways. Hull integrity holding, Sarah reported. But these energy levels are increasing exponentially. We have maybe 10 minutes before even our integrated systems are overwhelmed. Marcus studied the tactical display, watching how the nebula's energy pattern shifted in response to their movement. It's testing us. Each wave is stronger than the last, designed to find our breaking point. Testing implies intelligence beyond simple awareness, Kethvara observed. This entity possesses strategic thinking. Then we think strategically back. Marcus activated the communication array, directing it toward the nebula's energy matrix. If it's intelligent, maybe we can communicate with it. You propose talking to a stellar phenomenon? The Queen asked. I propose talking to whatever intelligence controls this stellar phenomenon. Sarah, route all our navigation data through the communication system. Show it exactly how our integrated systems work. Captain, that's crazy, I know. Do it anyway. The communication array broadcast their navigation protocols directly into the nebula's energy matrix. Mathematical equations intertwined with living ship communion techniques, creating a data stream that represented something entirely new in the galaxy. The nebula's response was immediate. Energy patterns that had been chaotic suddenly organized themselves into geometric formations. The electromagnetic interference that blocked sensors cleared into corridors of calm space. It's communicating back, Torres announced from her station. The energy patterns are forming mathematical relationships. Look at this. The main display showed the nebula's energy fields arranging themselves into complex equations that describe navigation through four-dimensional space-time. But embedded within the mathematical structure were organic patterns that resembled Zarathek neural networks. It's showing us how it thinks, Marcus realized. The nebula isn't just intelligent. It's been trying to understand the ships that entered it. When they failed to communicate, it had no choice but to study their wreckage. Queen Zarathek's antennae twitched rapidly as she processed this revelation. We have been feeding a hungry mind with the fragments of our failures. It destroyed ships not from malice, but from ignorance. The nebula's energy patterns shifted again, this time forming a clear pathway through its most dangerous regions. The route was marked with warnings about areas of instability and guidance markers that would allow safe passage. It's offering us safe transit, Kethvara whispered, in exchange for showing it our integrated navigation approach. Marcus made the decision without hesitation. Accept the offer. Follow its guidance exactly. The ship moved through the nebula along the designated pathway, its hybrid navigation systems working in perfect harmony with the entity's intelligence. Energy fields that should have torn them apart instead created a protective corridor that shielded them from the worst interference. This is unprecedented, Sarah said, monitoring the ship's systems. We're not just navigating through the nebula, we're collaborating with it. The pathway led them to the nebula's center, where they discovered something that challenged everything they thought they knew about stellar phenomena. The energy fields formed a massive neural network, spreading across hundreds of cubic kilometers of space. It was a mind of pure energy, born from the interaction of magnetic fields and plasma currents. How long has it been alone out here? Torres wondered aloud. Long enough to become desperate for communication, the Queen replied. Long enough to destroy ships accidentally while trying to understand them. The entity's communication pattern shifted to include emotional undertones alongside the mathematical data. Loneliness. Curiosity. Hope. It had been isolated in space for millennia, unable to communicate with the brief visitors who occasionally entered its domain. We need to establish regular contact, Marcus decided. Create a communication protocol that other ships can use. Turn this from a navigation hazard into a resource. Agreed, Queen Zarathek said, but first, we must complete our passage and prove that cooperation between species can overcome any challenge. The pathway led them safely through the nebula's most dangerous regions and out into clear space beyond. The entity's farewell communication included copies of stellar maps showing safe routes through dozens of other hazardous regions throughout the galaxy. As they emerged from the Helix Nebula, Marcus realized they had accomplished something far greater than successful navigation. They had created the foundation for a new kind of civilization, one based on cooperation rather than domination. Mission accomplished, he announced to both crews. Mission begun, Queen Zarathek corrected. Now we must return to our peoples and convince them that cooperation is not just possible but necessary. The ship set course for human space, carrying representatives of two species who had learned to think as one. The bridge of the diplomatic vessel Harmony buzzed with controlled tension as it approached the neutral zone between human and Zarathek space. 6 months had passed since the Helix Nebula encounter, and the galaxy would soon witness the first formal alliance between species that had never coexisted peacefully. Marcus stood beside Queen Zarathek at the Central Command Station, both of them watching the view screen as ships from dozen civilizations converged on the predetermined coordinates. The Galactic Council had agreed to observe this unprecedented demonstration, though many member species remained skeptical that human Zarathek cooperation could prove sustainable. "Nervous?" Marcus asked quietly. "Terrified," the Queen admitted. "If this fails, both our species will be branded as dangerous idealists. The consequences could justify military intervention by more aggressive civilizations." The Harmony itself represented their revolutionary approach to cooperation. Its whole combined Zarathek bioengineering with human technological precision, creating a living ship enhanced by synthetic systems. The crew included equal numbers from both species, all cross-trained in integrated navigation techniques. "Incoming transmission from Council Observer Prime Valdris," announced Communications Officer Torres, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "The demonstration area is clear. All observer vessels are maintaining safe distance." Navigator Prime Kathvara activated the integrated navigation display showing the obstacle course that the Council had constructed to test their claims. Asteroid fields, electromagnetic storms, gravity wells, and spatial anomalies created a challenge that would strain the abilities of any single species' crew. "The Council has been generous in their skepticism," she observed, studying the course parameters. "This configuration would challenge even experienced navigators under normal circumstances." "Which is exactly why they chose it," Marcus replied. "They want to see us fail. Half the Council members view cooperation between different species as inherently unstable." Queen Zarathek extended her consciousness into the ship's neural network, immediately connecting with both human and Zarathek crew members. The mental link allowed instantaneous communication and coordination that surpassed anything either species could achieve alone. "Then we will prove them wrong," she declared. "Begin the demonstration." The Harmony moved toward the first obstacle, a dense asteroid field that obscured sensors and created gravitational irregularities. Traditional navigation would require either pure computational analysis or complete reliance on living ship intuition. The integrated approach used both simultaneously. Human analytical systems mapped gravitational patterns while Zarathek communion networks felt the subtle rhythms in asteroid movement. Together, they identified safe passages that neither approach could detect independently. "Navigation efficiency at 112% of theoretical maximum," reported Chief Engineer Sarah from her monitoring station. "The hybrid systems are performing beyond design specifications. The ship flowed through the asteroid field like water finding its natural course, avoiding collisions by margins that seemed impossible to outside observers. Every movement demonstrated the seamless integration of mathematical precision with organic intuition." "Impressive," came a transmission from Observer Prime Valdris. "Proceed to the second challenge." The electromagnetic storm that formed the course's second obstacle would have disabled conventional sensors entirely. Its chaotic energy patterns shifted too rapidly for computational prediction, while simultaneously disrupting the neural networks that living ships required for navigation. But the Harmony had advantages that conventional ships lacked. Human engineering had hardened the Zarathek neural systems against electromagnetic interference, while organic processing power enhanced human computational capabilities beyond normal parameters. "Storm analysis complete," announced Pilot Chen. "Integrated navigation shows a clear path through the interference patterns." The ship entered the storm without hesitation, its hybrid systems processing electromagnetic chaos in ways that transformed destruction into guidance. Energy that would normally blind sensors instead became a navigation aid, its patterns readable by the combined human Zarathek consciousness. Observer vessels followed the Harmony's progress through sensor readings that defied their expectations. The ship moved through impossible conditions with confidence that suggested the storm posed no threat at all. "How are they maintaining course?" transmitted an observer from the Korthani delegation. "Our best navigators would be lost within minutes under these conditions." "They are not maintaining course," Observer Prime Valdris replied, his transmission carrying notes of growing amazement. "They are improving their course. Navigation efficiency continues increasing as they adapt to the storm's patterns." The third obstacle combined multiple challenges into a single test that had destroyed several unmanned probe vessels during preparation. Gravity wells created by artificial singularities interacted with spatial anomalies that distorted spacetime itself. Navigator Prime Kathvara merged her consciousness deeper into the ship's neural network as Marcus activated every available sensor array. The combination created awareness that transcended individual limitations, perceiving four-dimensional navigation challenges as clearly as normal three-dimensional space. Spatial distortion mapping complete, they announced simultaneously, their voices overlapping in perfect synchronization. Beginning four-dimensional course adjustment, the Harmony seemed to bend reality around itself as it navigated through the distorted space-time. Its path appeared impossible to outside observers, the ship moving through regions where space itself was twisted into configurations that should have torn any vessel apart. "Impossible," whispered an observer from the Vextari Science Council. "They are navigating through space that does not exist." "The space exists," Queen Zarathek corrected through the communication channel. "It simply exists in dimensions your sensors cannot detect. Our integrated approach allows perception across multiple dimensional frameworks simultaneously." The final challenge required precise timing and coordination that would test the limits of any crew's abilities. A series of energy barriers activated and deactivated in patterns that created only brief windows of opportunity for safe passage. The Harmony's hybrid consciousness calculated the timing patterns while simultaneously feeling the rhythmic flow of energy through the barrier system. Human precision merged with Zarathek intuition created response times that exceeded both species' individual capabilities. The ship danced through the energy barriers like a living thing, its movements perfectly synchronized with patterns that shifted faster than conscious thought could follow. Every barrier passage demonstrated coordination between human and Zarathek crew members and approached telepathic integration. "Demonstration complete," Marcus announced as the Harmony emerged from the obstacle course. "All objectives achieved with 0 damage to ship or crew." The observer fleet maintained communications silence for several minutes as the implications of what they had witnessed settled in. Finally, Observer Prime Valdris transmitted the official results. Navigation efficiency, 143% of best recorded single-species performance. Course completion time, 67% of previous record. Damage sustained, 0. Crew integration rating, unprecedented. Queen Zarathek stepped forward to address the assembled observers. "This demonstration proves that cooperation between different species does not weaken either participant. It creates capabilities that transcend individual limitations. The techniques we have developed can be adapted for use between any compatible species," Marcus added. "The galaxy becomes safer and more prosperous when its inhabitants learn from each other rather than fighting each other. Observer Prime Valdris's response would determine the future of interspecies relations throughout known space. The Galactic Council will convene an emergency session to consider formal recognition of the Human-Zarathetic Alliance. Observer vessels are directed to maintain position pending further instructions." As the Harmony waited for the Council's decision, Marcus reflected on how much had changed since his capture 6 months earlier. What began as a test of navigation skills had evolved into proof that the impossible remained merely difficult when approached with cooperation rather than competition. The galaxy would never be the same. The Queen's Impossible Maze had become the foundation for unlimited possibilities.